You're listening to the OKR Podcast, where we talk about the power of innovative strategy execution in a super dynamic world. Our guests include senior executives leading businesses and the strategy execution experts to whom they entrust business results. You'll hear their learnings, how generative AI makes it easier to drive objectives and results, and how to maximize the value your business creates by clarifying, driving, and measuring business outcomes.
Today, our guest on the OKR podcast is Lou Maiuri, CEO of AssetMark. Not only the guest, but our host in your lovely studio. Thanks for having us.
Well, it's great to have you here, and thank you for having me.
You are CEO at AssetMark. Let's start a little bit with your journey as an entrepreneur, a leader, a CEO into this chair, and then we'll turn to AssetMark's.
Well, it's an interesting journey. I've been an entrepreneur. I've worked at a very large bank where I was the president of the bank, and here I am at AssetMark. What I would say is I've been an entrepreneur at heart all the time. So I've been a business builder, very focused on taking the businesses that I enter and making them better. So whether it's in a private setting, whether it's an entrepreneur who had an idea at a very young age, or leading 50,000 people at a bank that served 32 different countries, I still brought that same approach. So how do you make an impact? How do you make change? Whether small scale or large scale. So that's how I think of myself. I've done lots of different things. Sometimes I wonder how I got here myself, to be honest with you. So
it's a pretty exceptional journey. Not many people can lead on different size canvases, right?
Yeah.
It's exceptional to go from starting something to leading something the scale of State Street to then a really fast moving, high growth opportunity that you have here at AssetMark.
It wasn't the plan, to be honest with you, but I think as I was fortunate, again, we had a startup. We ended up selling it to a bank. And so there I was, the CEO of a software company inside of a bank for a while. And that was new and something to learn. You're in a public setting versus a private setting, bank highly regulated. It just had a different sort of motion to it, if you will. So I had to learn that. And along the way, at Bank of New York Mellon, they sort of tapped me on the shoulders and asked me, would I want to cross over from the software side to the services side? And that's when I asked myself, am I good because I'm good? Or am I good because I've been doing the same thing for a long time? So the challenge for me was, can you scale your leadership from hundreds to thousands, from several countries to many countries? And that was a great journey. And I learned a lot about scaling up, not only your leadership, culture, messaging, how do you implement change, how do you implement strategy at that scale? And now I'm in a smaller setting, and I would say I benefited from learning how to communicate, learning how to set strategy, learning how to deal with the nuances. When you deal with 32 different countries, you've got people all over the planet, cultures are different, what they believe is different, what resonates with them is different. So how do you actually get that to work across that large scale? And I'd say even in a smaller setting, it applies, right? Even though here at AssetMark, we're 1,200 people, we're in Phoenix, we're in Atlanta, we're in Charlotte, we're in Chicago, we're in Houston. Again, we're in the same country, but every single site has a different way that they work, and there are different disciplines that are there. So how do you communicate and have that fabric that keeps everyone together? And that's where OKRs come in. I know that's where we're going, but yeah, it's been a great journey. Yeah. Not one that I plotted when I was younger, but here I am. So,
brilliant question to ask yourself. I think especially for leaders, right? Who are, when you're in the same role for a long period of time, just to actually have the introspection to say, wait, is it because I'm doing it over and over again and I have a lot of institutional understanding?
Right.
Or is it because I'm great at it?
I found myself solving the same problems over and over again, which is fine. And they changed a little bit. I have this view, life is short, right? So you want to make an impact in the businesses that you're in, but you also want to grow. I think it's too boring to sit around and not to just do the same thing over and over again. So I love to grow. I love to build on the experiences. I've run trading businesses. I've run technology businesses, services businesses. Here I am in the wealth industry, which is a little bit of a pivot from where I came from, which is in the institutional space. But there are parallels to all of them. And I kept on building on my learning as I went through it. I'd learn something new and then, build on that.
Yeah. The juice of life right there.
Yeah, there you go.
So tell us a little bit about AssetMark.
Yeah, so we're about a 20-something-year-old company. We're a premier wealth platform supporting independent advisors around the country. And our game is to help them grow faster than they could on their own. So we provide technology, services, asset management, custodial services. And these are folks that are trying to help individuals, mass affluent and high net worth, with their goals in life, whether it's retirement, whether it's weddings, whether it's vacation homes, or just passing their wealth from one generation to the next. So we provide a plethora of services that help them sort of manage through that, or help the advisors help their clients manage through that. So support about 11,000 advisors today, about 160 billion of assets on the platform. And like I said, 1,200 employees, and we're in a great spot. It's a growing area of the market. I think this notion of personalization, if you think about your personal life, whether it's your app that helps you get coffee in the morning and personalizes to what you did yesterday and how you like things, that's all happening in the private wealth space also, to help individuals customize their portfolios away from mutual funds or even large-scale ETFs. So you can get a personalized set of offerings based on what you believe in, where you are in life, and what you need. So.
Super interesting opportunity, actually.
Really great. We're in a great position, and there's a lot going on in the wealth industry, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get here from where I was. But yeah, we're excited about it. We pride ourselves on service quality. The moat, if you will, around our business is our culture, and our NPS scores are 73, which is very high. But I tell folks, it's our belief system, it's our culture, and our mission is to make a difference in the lives of our advisors and their clients every single day. And our people do it. We may not get it right every day, but if we don't, we actually will make sure we make a very positive difference in their lives. And we find that to be the biggest difference. Even though we have great capabilities, it's how we do it that changes that. So
intent really matters.
Yeah,
and
really.
it shows through, right?
It does.
Even in an error, the intent to deliver something great shows to the recipient.
That's right.
So the company's private, backed by private equity, as opposed to a publicly traded company or a venture-backed company. What are some of the, if you can share, what are some of the ambitions and strategic ambitions you have for the next few years, and where does AssetMark go from here?
Yeah, so we're sponsored by GTCR. I believe they're one of the oldest private equity firms in the country. It was established in the 80s, and so we're super excited. They're a great partner. They bring wisdom. They bring, obviously, the capital behind it to make the investments, and it's a really good partnership. And it's a growth thesis. So the company was public in the New York Stock Exchange. On September 5th of 2024, they took the company private, and I was part of that with the management team of AssetMark also. So, and the idea was just to grow, to invest in the business, to help take advantage of some of the things that are happening. The industry is consolidating, but there's a huge need for investments to personalize, bring private assets to individuals. Private assets typically are things like private equity and private credit, which have been reserved for the ultra wealthy or institutions, large institutions of the world. And now it's being brought down to mass affluence. So we're very big part of that going forward. So it's all been about growth. We've had 2 acquisitions since the close. So that's another way that we're growing inorganically. And so it's been a really good partnership. And it's different. I've been in the public setting. My entrepreneurship days was part of a venture firm. So that's a little different. The venture setting, you don't care about EBITDA and margin. You just care about growth. Public setting is obviously very different. And being part of a highly regulated bank is even a different setting in the public markets. And here, it is a growth thesis, but this is private equity. So we're a mature company. We're growing the top line, we're growing the bottom line, and differentiating ourselves as we do that. So having a lot of fun with it. So
that's great. We're obviously very happy to be supporting your mission and the strategic ambitions as you drive growth. We didn't meet here. We met a few years ago when you brought OKRs and WorkBoard to State Street, where you were leading a big chunk of that business. What intrigued you about OKRs? What was interesting about that way of maybe organizing, coalescing, and focusing?
Yeah, look, we have, and State Street still has a very big, large, ambitious agenda. Again, very different setting, over 30 countries in the world, 50,000 employees, and we were trying to compete with very large banks. And so we had these objectives. We had these ideas that we wanted to put forth in the organization. And again, you're talking about that very large organization across many, many different countries. And what I would find, honestly, is when we get our individual plans for the year, right, they were just filled with lots of stuff. You're trying to take this ambitious business agenda, your personal development items, and we had these goals that, if you will, that were messy, and you'd lose the plot. And so I was sort of looking for something that said, how do we bring the business objectives up front and then get people connected to it? And I ended up, someone said to me, you should read the book, Measure What Matters. And so I read the book from John Doerr. And I thought, well, this is clarity and simple. And again, large organizations, you're going to have silos because just the nature of it. And so how do you get people to work horizontally as well as they do vertically? And so that was the concept. And again, that was hugely ambitious, as you know, big organization like that, trying to roll out OKRs. And, some of it worked well, and we learned some things about how to improve that. And I'm happy to hear you were just telling me recently they're still using it. So that's awesome to hear. And that's sort of how I was introduced to OKRs. And of course, we found you guys because we realized, okay, well, then how do you implement this? What are the tools that you use to track this and feed all your internal systems so that you can make it something that you could use every single day? And so I'm glad we did that. That's how we met. You and I met. And I think we brought you to an operating committee meeting where you introduced the concept to, I think, over 100 people at that point, the senior leaders of the company.
I think did we do a top 450 or something event?
Yes. Yeah.
It was a big room.
It was
and
a big room
a lot of leaders in it.
Yep. And the idea was to try to introduce the concept of objectives and key results versus individual plans versus business goals. And but yeah, so for me, it was trying to get the organization to connect. And how do you get 50,000 people to all work in the same boat or be connected to the work too? What am I doing? How does it actually have an impact? And so I felt that, that the tool and the framework could actually help with that. So.
And then you brought OKRs and WorkBoard, thank you, with you to AssetMark. And we've been working with lots of folks on your team, actually, right? You have a terrific team across HR and then SA, Chief of Staff, and kind of the operational component. What made you bring it here? Very different canvas size, right? Why was it important in this context?
Well, we first thing I did is their CEOs, they came in and we had to build a strategy. So company was very successful. So it wasn't a question of this was a fix-it or fixer-upper or renovation project. It was like, we're doing well. What do we want to do more? And what are these key objectives that we have? And we worked on that. And then as you go through this, every company has stuff. And I would say one of the things that we realized at AssetMark is we also had silos. And vertically, things worked well. If you were in a particular division, north to south, you can get it done. But the things that we were laying out in our strategy required us to work horizontally. These are very big initiatives to grow in the registered investment advisor space. Or how do you bring private markets, which are very complicated, into a public-private structure, and you can do that at scale. You need tech, you need ops, you need investment people. So I quickly realized, and by the way, the organization told me we don't work well horizontally. So the first thing I did is I got the management team the book, and I had them all read the book and said, look at this concept. And if you want alignment, if you want transparency, if we want a fighting chance to work with team-based goals, this is a way that you can do it. And I think you said it best once, like, this is not going to fix the problem. It's going to show you where you have the issues so that you can lean in and do something about it. And never words have been truer. So I think for us, it started to highlight, okay, these are major objectives, but there's a team here that's under-resourced. So how do we help them? Or we overestimated this. Okay, how do we recalibrate? And so how do we get alignment? And we do that, and we can get into this at a very frequent basis. So it gives us a fighting chance to make sure we're getting to the goal line. And we're not waiting 3-4 months, someone at myself, and saying, how's the project going? And then only to find out we're 4 months behind schedule. We actually incorporated in our weeklies, monthlies, quarterly reviews. And people really enjoy it because I'd say beyond the executive team, it's transparency for the operating committee, which are the top 70 or 80 people. And now we're rolling it out even deeper in the organization so people feel connected, have the transparency. And what I'm hearing from the teams are like, we get it. We know what matters. If the board was to go up in the elevator with one of our employees that are using OKRs, they'd say, these are the things that we're working on. These are the major initiatives, which is the alignment part, which I think really helps giving you a fighting chance to pull this off. And we're trying to move at speed. And we're trying to do more things at the same time, which also gives you the opportunity or the risk of not executing. So we had a great strategy. It was very ambitious. It was team-based, and we needed to do more. And so we had to find ways to break through that. So far, so good. We're rocking and rolling. We're over a year into it. And I'd say most of the objectives that we targeted are heading in the right direction or have delivered. So
that's great. Your pacing, and as CEO, you are the pace setter for the organization, right? Your pacing of looking at it on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, not just quarterly, that's the actual secret ingredient to achieving what you want. It's how quickly can you find what isn't working, where the resources need to be shifted, how fast can you course correct, and of course, how much time do you have to course correct? You find at the end of the quarter, you lost the entire quarter.
Yep.
No, none of us can make that up, right?
Right.
You find that in a week or 10 days in, you had a decent chance of recouping ground, adjusting course, and I think when you think about growing the top line and the bottom line, of actually allocating your resources in the sharpest way, which is your fundamental capacity to execute against the strategic ambitions, right?
Yeah, and we have to move with speed. I have a great saying, by the way, you can take it. The pace of the leader dictates the speed of the pack, right? So to your point.
Love it, yep.
But you also can't go so fast that you have to sort of assess how fast can the organization go, or else you're going to speed away from them and they're going to be way behind you. So so you have to find that right balance. And the tool gives you a chance to sort of figure out what groups are running at the right speed and which ones are falling behind. So look, we have weekly meetings. Every single month I'm reviewing it with my executive committee. Every single month I have an OpCo meeting with the top 70 executives in the firm, and we go through WorkBoard. We look at the full alignment report. And, I would tell you the first few meetings, I remember this was an actually interesting spot, and you focus on the reds and yellows. You don't focus on the greens. So I started off by focusing on the reds and yellows, and I think people felt it was a name and shame type of thing. And so we had to make sure, as we ask questions, is how can we help? What do you need? What do we learn? Now, if you come into those meetings, people are coming in prepared with an ask. Hey, look, I thought I only needed 3 people. I actually need 4 to pull this off, or this is more complicated. So the conversation's richer, and people recognize that it isn't about naming and shaming them. It isn't about criticizing. It's about, as a team, how do we get through this? We do have to, the one thing we have to do, which I'm working with Essie, who who's leading this for us, is we also have to celebrate the greens. We tend to bypass them, and we realize we have a lot of greens that we should just say to folks, hey, we got that right, thank you so much. Or this was yellow and it got to green, or this was red and it got to green. So I'd say the next generation of improvement for us is to find a way to get to the stuff that needs assistance, but also celebrate when we can, because there's some learnings there about why did it work so well, and how do we incorporate that for other things. So we're, one might say it's that's a lot of time you put in. Those are pretty expensive meetings, and I say, well, it's a pay me now, pay me later. I would rather put the time in now, to your point, find something 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, course correct it, and get to the goal line, save money and time that way, versus having an intervention 3 months later, a quarter in, and those are extremely expensive. And our world, like I'm sure any of your other clients' worlds, is very competitive. We're just not sitting here ourselves. We have competition that's trying to knock us off and compete with us. So speed and quality and execution matters, right?
Yeah.
So
speed wins races.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and latency loses it, and it's pretty straightforward. I have conversations frequently with leaders like, wow, it's expensive. We'll have to meet. We'll have to discuss. Like, imagine how expensive it's going to be when half your headcount doesn't know where you're going, and you spend your time apologizing. Like, these are really expensive. Right?
Yeah,
like, it's phenomenally expensive to have. If you think about where your costs are in your business and mine, in most businesses, it's in the talented people we have in the company.
Right.
And if their time squandered is actually pretty brutal.
Yeah. And a lot of organizations, it isn't that way here, but don't want to communicate bad news. So you got to, they just feel like I've got it. And here we're like, look, these are complicated things we're trying to do, some things we've never done before.
Yeah.
So how do we as a team surface those a bit? And, maybe there's an idea that I have or someone else has, or maybe quite frankly, we got it wrong up front. Our L1 objective was too aggressive. Let's reset now and get it right, so the teams aren't stressing and delivering a low quality product. So, and look, I've been executing my whole life, whether I started off as a technologist building software. And so you just take the agile method. What do? Every day they have stand-up meetings every day. They meet every week. They have a regular cadence. And so this is not very different to that. It's at a macro level, so you're dealing with the organization, but you're having constant communication, honest communication, and then making course adjustments, course corrections as you go. So
the role you play in that, how you communicate, how you see it, is so incredibly important.
Right.
Like communicating we're just going to have an intellectually honest conversation about we're over on resources, or we, our eyes were bigger than our stomach, so here's where we are now, right? Those things are all true. It's just that we we can sometimes comfortably ignore them
Right.
and act as if they aren't, right? And leading in a way and letting other people participate in a way that acknowledges the fundamental truths, right?
Right.
Looks at what is and works together on where do we go from the situation is that only happens when a leader takes your approach to
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, you got to be careful how you ask questions. You got to be careful about your facial expressions, especially early on, right? Because it's intimidating. Here, you've got the CEO or the COO or the CTO asking you questions. So there were a few meetings where, I know that my facial expression wasn't sort of the right one, and I definitely could see the impact it had. So I have to also prepare myself. So even before our review meetings, I will go through everything. I'll write down my questions in advance because I'll read the notes because we're using WorkBoard. I go down there every single week. I do use the AI agents that tell me here are things that are going well and here are things that aren't going well. So that I can really engage in a sort of peer-to-peer way, even though I'm playing a role, so they feel very comfortable in telling me the truth. Hey, we don't have the right resources. We don't know what we're doing. We could use an expert. And then when they see that they're not, or you know what, I got this wrong. I thought I could do it in 3 months. It's really 4 or 5 months worth of work. The goal is to get this done in a good way. And I have a saying that if we're late by a month, but it's right, I'd rather do that than, miss it completely or deliver the wrong execution. And so it's wrong. So again, you want to make your dates, but it's not a perfect world. And when you're doing a lot that requires technology and people and operations, and you're trying to implement new things to compete with your competitors, the world is gray, and our job is to make it black and white for our employees every single day. So this helps us do that. So
I love the iteration. I think it helps you run a smarter and faster business, right? Because you're using all the signal you can to adjust and adapt.
And the employees get comfortable with,
Yeah.
hey, you go to this meeting and, you
It's
can
gonna be
learn, they get
constructive.
help. And others are watching too and sort of thinking, okay, I can apply that technique to what I'm doing also. So
Yep.
we're getting there. I think like I said, we're a year in. Conversations are far richer. And again, I'm not sitting there. I would love every meeting to be green. There's no reason to meet, but that's just not the way the world turns.
No,
right?
it is not. It is not. And the thing we know now in ways we never knew before is that change is an absolute continuous force of nature. And our best hope is see it early, respond quickly, adjust as we
That's right.
can, right?
Yep.
And I think sometimes lost when you're trying to do new strategies that require cross-functional coordination, which is, I'll argue, most strategies are about harnessing some new lateral opportunity in the org. And when they involve entering new markets, offering new products, built into that is you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
You have to create a learning, adapting organization. You must feel your way through, right? You can't aim for perfection and then be shocked or startled that you didn't know everything. It's prima facie. You don't know everything,
That's right.
right? It's a
And
learning
you have to be
effort.
comfortable with that, or else the company won't take on innovation, right? So if it's if you're not comfortable with that, and you do name and shame people, the next time you try to be innovative and the first to market, people are going to do the obligatory. They're going to hold back. So you have to find this right balance of learning and leaning in, like you said, and sort of trying to press on the walls to create and shape things a little differently. But if you're not on top of it, you're gonna get off track, right? So this is where I think the tools that we use and the cadence that we use allows us to say, do we have it right? What are we learning? What are our competitors doing? Like, how do we incorporate that in everything that we're doing at a faster pace? So, and I'm finding that, the outcomes are there. Like, we're delivering things. I would say, 70, 80% of them are hitting the mark. The other ones are like, we got close, and let's go back and figure out how we can get that even better, improve that as we go forward. And then I know our team will cringe as I say this, but our 2026 agenda is getting even wider because we're building new muscles and we have the frameworks to lift people up and give other folks a chance to run initiatives with this tool too. So
That's exciting.
yeah, it is. So
It's like actual momentum.
it's
pretty
momentum,
neat.
but if people do complain at times, we're doing a lot. So it's like, listen, it's like you said, the world, if you're not growing and changing,
Yeah.
you might be dying,
Yeah.
slow death. So you have to continually press forward. So
Yeah.
especially, with all the technology that's out there, you've incorporated AI in a nice way. We're doing that on our own platform. And that's a game changer too. It can be an unlock, or, it could definitely be a threat depending on how you think about it. So
Yep.
we see it as an unlock, obviously. So.
Yeah. Enormous potential. And
Right.
yet another, we're going to figure it out as we go, right?
That's right.
Because what it looks like even 18 months from now is actually unknowable,
Right.
right? We can dream and then we can experiment and learn.
That's
That's about it, right? Do you want to talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about AI
Yeah,
and how you're using it internally?
I think I'd say we do it a couple of ways. How to make ourselves more productive. And so I'll talk about that in a second. And then how do we help our advisors be more productive is a simple way to think about it. And so I'll give you some real use cases. Our technology teams are using capabilities right now that is writing software for them. Maybe it's 60% of the code base. Technically or literally, if you get a perfect spec written, there are technologies out there that can build a system for you with AI, but the first part's the operative part, like how do you build a perfect spec? So it is definitely helping bring productivity to our tech teams. We use it today in our call centers. So when people call in, the transcription is happening live, but we're going to take it to the next level. Like there are calls that have great answers. Think of it as a knowledge base. So how do we actually use those in sort of helping our call center folks? When another call comes in, the AI agent can listen to it and say, hey, here's a response that Lou gave last week that hit the mark. This might be the same thing. So we're really trying to enhance our call center folks because they're at the front of the line and they're getting complicated questions in from advisors around estate planning. Someone passed away, there's an estate, their trust, and how do I deal with that? These aren't just simple questions.
Yeah.
And so we're using it there. Our investment teams are using it for due diligence to help them scan through the mounds of information that are out there about asset managers and find the good questions to ask as we're allocating and reviewing investment managers. So there's a whole bunch that we're doing. And our operations teams, we're going to try to find a way to continually make ourselves more efficient. And we do that. Sometimes you don't need AI to do that, by the way. You could use other technologies. For our advisors, though, we're doing a few things. That we've partnered with someone that's helping them grow. So advisors are, prospecting in their zip codes. And so we found tools that can actually help. These are my words, and it's not technically, but ingest the whole internet, your LinkedIn, your news articles, public information, government databases, and profile, given the space that you're in, these are people that are more apt to have wealth. If someone's a Section 16 employee, they just got new shares of stock, maybe you want to call them. So there's a prospecting angle to it. There's something we call next best action. So you think about an advisor, and again, the idea is how do we actually have advisors go from 100 clients per advisor to 1,000? So how do you know your client? Because this is really about being a life coach and a wealth coach. And so some of these tools allow you to say, let's put your client information in and we'll go scan. There's a death in the family. If a child has graduated, if someone has changed a job, you can give them a call. In the morning, you'll get a report that says next best action. Give Deidre a call and tell her, congratulations, I heard that your son just graduated college. So there's some really empowering tools that help them. And the last thing we're doing, this is recent, there's a lot more. There's a process where advisors sort of, every single time you sit down with them, whether monthly or quarterly, they write a summary. Here's your portfolio and here's how you've done. That could take an advisor 30 minutes because every portfolio is personalized. It isn't just a mutual fund that you and I are in anymore. It's like, no, it's a personal portfolio with tax optimization, meeting your objectives. So it takes a little bit more work to say, here's how you did and here's why you did that. So we're rolling out something now that is doing all that work for advisors. And I was just with our client advisory board last week, and one advisor said, I spend 20 to 30 minutes per client writing that summary, and you're serving this up to me in minutes. Even if it's 80% right, and I can add a little color to it, that's really productive. So there's wonderful productivity tools. The key, though, is we're integrating it into our platform. So this isn't a bunch of little widgets and applications you have to go to. It's all built in seamlessly. Like I said, sometimes it's just robotics. It's not AI that's doing the work because I think they all have specific needs and objectives. So, but we're trying to do this to make ourselves more productive, and we'll continue to. Like you said, we'll keep exploring. We'll find new partners. We'll learn more things. So it's exciting. I mean, for me, it's about how do we do more with the team that we have. Our goal isn't to, I'm reading a lot in the paper about, especially in Silicon Valley, right? A lot of technologists are losing their jobs. For us, it's like, well, how do we just keep 1,200 people and do what, 15 or 1,700 could do with some of these tools down the road. So, and that's our aim.
You lift everybody up to the top of their capacity, right? And I think in a bunch of those scenarios, you actually also reduce their anxiety. Right? We often don't do the follow through we should, right? Because we don't have time or we got to go bounce to the next meeting, whatever that is. And we're aware that we're we're under delivering on the way we would like to operate,
Right.
We're not following through as well or smart as quickly as we should have, which is this, I think of it as just kind of low grade anxiety of like, oh geez, I'm just not doing what I should or could or what I want to, right? And this sort of automate that, the next 3 things you need to do, and the homework you don't really have time to get through, the briefings, right, for your advisors.
Right.
Those things, I think, just take down our anxiety and lift us up, change the quality of how we get to show up. I think they're capacity creators for us individually, right, and even maybe emotionally, and certainly for organizations as well.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot to get the organization to be comfortable with it, because the best use cases are known by, it's not by me, it's not by my team, it's in the organization.
Yeah.
Here's something that's a paper cut that gets in the way of efficiency. Is there a way to make that happen more automatically? So next week is our operating committee meeting. We're spending some time on that to sort of talk about what we call the growth loop. How do you continually grow the top line and the bottom line? And of course, the key is technology on the bottom line part. And how do you just make ourselves more productive, find inefficiencies that help you do more with what you have, right? So it's a comfort thing. And I think if we can get that right, just the way we did it with the OKRs, I think the demand is going to come from the organization. They'll be saying to us, like, this is a list of things I need done. Yeah, and hopefully we're oversubscribed so we can't get to them. That will tell me that the organization is really leaning in and thinking about how they can completely rethink workflows, or just at least take some friction out of their process every single day. So
yeah. And that's going to create the capacity you need for the bigger 2026 agenda.
That's right. Yeah, we have a saying here, and we use it, that what got us here won't get us here. And what it is a recognition that AssetMark, for example, has had tremendous success over the 20 years plus that it's been in business. And it's been done with quality and great people and great effort. But as you get larger, as the agenda gets larger, as the competition, again, we're consolidating in our industry, so they get bigger and stronger too. It's a different game. So, but it's also a recognition too. We want to preserve the parts that really make us different. So we talk, for instance, let me pivot into the AI. We even talk about AI. How do we get AI to do it the AssetMark way? When it asks questions of an advisor, do it the way we talk about it, because we have this mission statement to make a difference in the lives of our advisors and their clients. And so there is a way to influence these technologies to bring that personality across. So that's, we want to continue to do what we do. We have to do it a little differently, but I think we still can deliver this very unique experience with humans and technology side by side. So
yeah, we're with the chief of staff agent, the leadership coach agent in WorkBoard. One of the things we're doing in Q4 is actually creating an interface for customers to say, for example, our management principles are this. The culture change I'm trying to drive values these things, right? Our fundamental values look like this. Our code of conduct requires us to do that, where you're in a sense giving the agent workforce guidance on how the chief of staff should coach somebody on following through or following up, and how the leadership coach should provide management advice. And one of the, it was a crystal example. I met with the CHRO of a Fortune 100 pharma and consumer products company. And they're trying to change the culture, right? It's like the culture is too nice. Nobody has the hard conversations. And so lots of decisions don't get made. And we're trying to shift the culture to be real, be direct, from everyone's very nice, right? Then separately, I had a conversation maybe a week later with the chief product officer at DaVita, who's a customer of ours, and we were talking about the same idea. It's like, well, our culture is be kind, right? We serve people in a very difficult life situations, right? And sometimes end of life situations. And the one thing we must always be is be kind. And so when you think about just our agents, the chief of staff and the leadership coach agent, those are really different textures on how the chief of staff suggests you follow up with Jane tomorrow, right? Which approach are you going to take? And in the pharma company's example, they're trying to drive a change, so you want it to be more assertive, if you will, about those values. Yeah, and more intellectual honesty in the feedback and so on, right? But it was a really crystal example of the opportunity to not just take off the shelf AI and use as is, right? But in our case, actually have AssetMark give the guidance to that agent workforce so that it shows up leading the way and reinforcing the principles that you want people to lead
Yeah.
by.
Well, that's interesting. You're doing the same thing. So yeah, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think the technology can embody that. So, and look, we're the same way. Like our values are heart and integrity and respect. Heart being this, make sure you make a difference in the lives of people. And there's a way that you can be provocative in a good way, in a nice way. You don't have to be a jerk about it. And so that's our culture here.
Yeah.
And if anything, we're probably trying to make sure we're curious and challenging ourselves. And like I said, the tools have helped us when I think about our monthlies and our weeklies. We're asking probing questions and people feel comfortable with it. But it's exciting what the technology can bring.
Yeah.
And so I wish I could predict the future. I can't. I know that we'll just keep learning. I have this other saying, do, learn, do.
Yep.
We'll keep doing it, we'll learning, and then we'll adjust and we'll continue to do it and see where it takes us. So
Let me shift to your weekly and monthly habits. I know you use WorkBoard yourself. Last time we talked, you had it open. I appreciated that very much. What are the views used? What do you like and use in it?
So I, on the one-on-ones, I use the manager lens. So I'll go into each individual and I'll hit the button and the AI agent will produce. It's actually, you can tell it's looking through level 1, level 2. It's going down the cascade and it's telling me, hey, look, this is what's really working well. Make sure you tell SE, this really is going well. Thank you very much. And here are a few things to look at. It's not my whole one-on-one. I would say it provides input as to where I want to lean. Sometimes I might just see one thing and say, I just want to talk about this right now. So that's helpful. We produce a weekly for the whole executive committee. Every Monday, the AI agent produces, here's the company L1s and L2s, and here's how you're doing, and here are the things that are working and not working. So we just get that as a group. Sometimes we have a weekly staff meeting. Sometimes we'll talk about that. Other times you can just read it and see what we're tracking. And then we just recently incorporated, and you gave me this idea, the freshness report. So because I found myself going in and I'd see a status, then I realized, well, this hasn't been updated in 3 or 4 weeks. This is not helpful. Or this one's been updated every week. Thank you very much. So we are now producing a freshness report that tells us how fresh the OKRs are. We first only rolled it out to the executive committee. We said, here's your teams and here's their freshness. And what I said to them is, like, you have agency here. So you actually can set how often you want to update it. So if it's every 2 weeks, it's every week. It can't go beyond 3 or 4 weeks. It just gets a little harder. But, you set that. And all I'm asking you to do is make sure your teams are upgrading it. So that certainly helped bring the freshness up. And then eventually we're going to roll that out to the whole organization. And then every once in a while, I fly a lot. So I'm on a plane and I fly from the East Coast to the West Coast. I'll just get on and I'll drill down. And then and what I do is I start interacting with people through the application, just me to them. Hey, I just saw this update. Could be 2 levels, 3 levels down. I'm not doing it for sport. I'm doing it because I'm actually curious. I see that, you're struggling here. What can I do to help? Can you get me an update? And, what I've learned a long time ago, whether it was way back when with, CRMs or databases, if the executive team is using the application and the data, the organization is going to update it. If you back off from that and you're not asking questions and it goes stale and they know it's stale and you're not asking questions, people are just trying to optimize their time, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I don't do it for that reason. I do it because I'm reading the report and I want to understand where things are. So, and I find it great. So we don't have to have a report that's put together and someone has to issue it and scrub it. We just go onto the tool and we use the data that's there. And we do that once a month in my staff meeting. We'll go through an OKR review. We'll bring in some leaders to talk about things. And like I said, then we have our operating committee meeting with the whole operating committee. And by then I'm so familiar with the objectives and key results. It's not like I'm asking questions, what is this? I know what it is. I remember the last time we talked about it and we can engage in a good conversation about where we're tracking. So, and for me, these are the things that matter when I think about our value creation plan, our strategy. These are not things that aren't bringing value to the company or value to our clients or value to our employees. By the way, we do things for our employees too. We want to be the employer of choice. These are the things that we decide at the executive level. This matters. And if we do this well, we're going to create value for our sponsors and for our shareholders and for our customers. So I better lean in. I better know what these things are.
Yeah.
And by the way, if it's something that I'm not interested in, it's not mattering, that doesn't belong there.
Take it off. Right.
I should say the other thing that we realize too, and we're getting better at this, is that we often say to folks, if you're going to do more, you have to start to ask yourself, what are you going to stop doing? So if the thing that you're doing isn't in this system, if it isn't on our OKRs, then at least go to your manager and say, does this matter anymore? It could be that it does and we got it wrong, we got to incorporate it, or it could be, no, that doesn't matter anymore. So let's stop doing that and incorporate something else. So I'd say we're getting better at that. I don't think we've perfected that yet. I think the hard thing you got to balance sometimes with OKRs is the BAU. Of course, we got to support our clients every day. I'm not going to have a key result that says, please answer the phone in a really good way. I mean, we do have objectives around NPS scores, which could cascade down, but there are things that are the normal course of business that is still an objective, but it may not make the business objectives that we're laying out in our strategy. So you have to find the right balance there, fixing bugs in software or things of that nature. So, and if you try to embody it all, then it just becomes too much.
You lose the clarity, or
you lose the clarity. So I think you got to try to find that right balance. These are the things that from a business objective matter. I often say these are an and, they're not ors. These OKRs and the BAU are what we need to do. And so we just have to find the right balance. And if the BAU is getting in the way of the objectives, then let's talk about it. If you need more resources, or the date's just too aggressive given other things that we have going on, it allows you to sort of navigate through it. So
I think about a set of things that I want to monitor. I need them to not break.
Right.
And then a set of things that I want to drive and change and create urgency around. And I try to approach both with the equal degree of transparency, but not confuse the two.
Right.
And that equal transparency is often a way to find out where they're competing with each other a little earlier.
Right.
And particularly deeper in the org where it's harder for people to have the agency to say, hey, either you guys got the big objectives wrong or I'm doing the wrong thing. Both of those things feel and sound terrible when they say them out loud, right? And so how do I get, I don't want to monitor everything, but there are a set of things that are, I'll call minimum conditions. And I want to make sure that the operating behaviors continue to deliver as we expect, right? And that also helps me say, wait, those operating behaviors don't even matter anymore.
Right.
Like we're just fundamentally not going in that direction. I need to take more steps to give people permission to say no, and give them the clarity to shift the energy or the resources somewhere else. It is an and for sure, and it's tempting, I think, and maybe it's a leader mistake to focus on the objectives and the key results. And then you hear from inside the organization, they don't get it. They just don't understand. They have no idea what it takes. They don't know what they're doing is another terrible one that comes up. But where there's unreconciled tension between the two, or a perception that leaders just ignoring what it takes to answer the phone.
We try to, for instance, to incorporate that. We said last year, we had a 73 NPS score. We said, hey, we want to have an ambitious goal of 80, which is world class. And we thought, well, that will also cover all the other stuff, the BAU. And it didn't. So it was great because the company recognized that being excellent with our advisors mattered. But there were things that, to your point, that we still needed to get right every single day that didn't sort of get captured in that. So again, I think if you acknowledge it and you say to them, look, if something is getting in the way of this, let's talk about it. We're here, we get it. There are other things that are happening that this isn't actually trying to handle. So
and I think having the data where you are on the objectives that do matter, having the objectives you're looking at or the objectives and key results you set actually be the main thing, right? As opposed to be a sidebar or fringe activity to how you run the business. It's actually the business growth we're trying to drive, keeping it in the center as opposed to parking it off to the side. It's shocking how many times people go through all the pain of alignment and then get none of the gain of momentum on those things that they aligned on. But it sounds like you have it really baked into, hey, this is the most important stuff. This is what we're going to focus on. This is the cadence. We do that. You know what those things are, and can rely on the data about them.
And it's been, like I said, it's my do, learn, do. Out of the gate, we realized it sounded like these are new shiny objects. The other stuff doesn't matter. And then we're like, nope, that's not what we meant. And then we had to learn about how do we stop doing certain things. So we've been refining it and learning and listening as we go. So, and I tap into your brain once in a while to help me. What's best practices so I can cut through it? So
what's the golden nugget?
Right.
I think you don't actually ever get it right. I think you just try and get it better every quarter with the fact pattern you have in the quarter, right? And if the fact pattern was constant, maybe we could get it right.
Right.
It's just never going to be, right?
Right.
So how well can we operate, and how much of our strategic agenda can we advance in a super dynamic fact pattern? Right? And that, not thinking that you arrive, just thinking that you're going to run a better business next quarter than last quarter.
Yep.
The name of the game, I think.
That's right.
Well, let's leave it there. How you run the race, how you win the race. Lou, thank you so much for being a guest and for having me as a guest in your studio.
Well, loved having you here, and thank you for letting me be part of your podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
You've been listening to the OKR Podcast. Subscribe in your favorite player so you never miss a moment. Thanks for listening. Until next time.